Hey everyone, welcome to another English grammar lesson. Today we're going to be talking about hyphens. Okay, so let me just say before we begin that hyphens can be a little bit tricky. It may take you weeks, months, or even years to really get a grip on them. But with that said, there are some situations where we always use hyphens. So what I think we should do is just try to start by memorizing those. But before we even do that, what even is a hyphen and what does it do? Well, for starters, a hyphen is different than a dash. For one, it's smaller, and two, it just does different things. So don't confuse hyphens with dashes. They are not the same. When I say hyphen, I mean hyphen, not dash. Okay, so anyway, what do hyphens do? Well, the purpose of a hyphen is to join multiple words together into a single word, words that have to be tied together in order to make sense. And when you join these words together into one, that new compound word should be spoken as one single unit without any noticeable pause. Now that may sound confusing, so let's just start by looking at some words that should always have hyphens. The first set of words are actually numbers, and those numbers are numbers 21 through 99. Why? Well, because when you actually write these numbers out, they're all two words: 22, 45, 81, 93. So once again, any number from 21 to 99 should be hyphenated because those numbers are all two words, but one unit. The next set of words we always hyphenate are words like mother-in-law, father-in-law, sister-in-law, brother-in-law, all the in-laws really. Because think about it, it's not your father-in-law, it's your father-in-law. It's not my sister-in-law, it's my sister-in-law. One breath, one unit should be hyphenated. The next set of words that should always have hyphens are words like 10-year-old and 12-year-old and 50-year-old. But this one's tricky because saying someone is a 10-year-old is different than saying someone is 10 years old. And maybe you can hear that. When you use ages as compound adjectives to describe people or things, they should be hyphenated. My 5-year-old brother, my 62-year-old neighbor. But you wouldn't hyphenate them if you said my brother is 5 years old, or my neighbor is 62 years old. I mean, you'd hyphenate the 62 in that last part because it's one of those numbers we talked about earlier, but you get the idea, I think. And if this is confusing to you, a little trick that I always tell people is to look for the letter S on the word year. Because if you're saying the word years, plural, with an S, you usually don't need to hyphenate the whole thing. You may need to hyphenate the actual number, if it's from 21 to 99, like we said earlier. But if you have the word years, plural, the whole thing usually doesn't have to be hyphenated. But when you have the word year, singular, you generally do need hyphens all the way through. Okay, so the only other common situation where you need hyphens is with certain prefixes, like ex, anti, mid, self, and so on, right? Like ex-boyfriend, anti-war, mid-1990s, self-centered, that kind of stuff. Alright, so let's look at a few examples and see if they're written correctly. And then, after that, we'll talk about using hyphens in a little more advanced way. Her ex-husband is actually quite nice. Okay, take a look. Are these words spoken as one unit? Do they have to be tied together for the sentence to really make sense? And the answer is, yeah, they do. It's not ex-husband, it's ex-husband. So this sentence is actually correct the way it is, with a hyphen. Next one. My uncle is 35 years old. Okay, so take a look and try to remember what we said earlier. If you see the word years with an S, you probably don't need a hyphen. Why? Well, because you're probably not dealing with a compound adjective. You're not dealing with one single unit. However, part of this sentence does need to be hyphenated. So my question to you is, what is that part? Give yourself a point if you said 35. You still need to hyphenate that number. So this would be the correct form of the sentence. Alright, one more basic one. My sister-in-law just moved to Georgia. Alright, so what are we thinking here? My sister-in-law, my sister-in-law, my sister... Can you hear it? When you read this sentence properly, this whole thing is one unit. And so, we hyphenate the whole thing. Okay, so by now you should be pretty confident with the basics. Remember, numbers 21 through 99, anything with in-laws, ages that work as compound adjectives, and finally, certain prefixes like ex and mid and self and so on. All right, so take a deep breath, because now we're going to move into something a bit more complicated, something you can't just memorize, something you have to develop a feel for, which again, can take years to master. And I think the best way to do this is to just jump right in. He was carrying a hot water bottle versus he was carrying a hot water bottle. Now, take a look at these two sentences, and based on what we just talked about with hyphens, let's see if you can tell how these two sentences are different. Because, believe it or not, that one hyphen completely changes the meaning of the sentence. The first sentence has no hyphen, which technically means that you have a water bottle, and that water bottle is hot, like the physical bottle itself is warm. In the second sentence, hot and water are tied together with a hyphen, meaning that you have a bottle that is filled with hot water, so the water is hot, and it's in that normal bottle. So again, in the first sentence, you have a water bottle, and the bottle itself is hot. And in the second sentence, you have a normal bottle, but it's filled with hot water. So the use of a hyphen there actually makes a difference. How about these two? They elected a small state senator versus they elected a small state senator. All right. So let's look at the first sentence, the one without the hyphen. In this sentence, we have a state senator, and that state senator is small. Like he's a small person, physically, I guess. Which is a bit of a weird observation, but if that's what you mean, then this would be how you'd write that sentence. Now let's look at sentence 2. Now in sentence 2, the words small and state are hyphenated, making them one unit. Because of this, we would be talking about a senator from a small state, which is probably what you'd be trying to say with this sentence. Okay, last one. Does this sentence need a hyphen? He used two made-up words in his poem. And if it does need a hyphen, where does that hyphen go? I'll let you think for a second. Got it? What kind of words is this guy using? Are they up words? Are they made words? No, they're made-up words. Altogether, one unit, one thing, a compound adjective that describes the words. Made up. Cool. Well, whether you came here for a refresher or just now learning this stuff for the first time, I hope this video helped. Be sure to check out the free practice down in the description, and see you next time. Thanks.